was looking for my phone charger under his car seat when my fingers found something else entirely, something soft, silky, and rose pink, a bra that wasn't mine. I knew that bra, I'd seen my best friend Sakari wearing it at the spa just 2 weeks ago, laughing about how expensive lingerie made her feel powerful, funny how power works, isn't it? Sometimes it hides under car seats, waiting to reveal itself at exactly the right moment. I sat there holding this piece of evidence, and the strangest thing happened. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel surprised. I just noticed. Like finally seeing something that had been there all along, hiding in plain sight. My name is Sage. I'm 28. And I've stayed quiet for long enough. The family dinner was supposed to be a celebration. My father, Hayden, raised his wine glass with that proud smile he reserved for business victories and rare family moments. A toast to make, he announced, his voice carrying that authority that filled every room he entered. Finally, my daughter found someone worthy of our family name. I forced my practiced smile, the one I'd perfected through years of these performances. Make accepted the praise with just the right amount of humility, his hand finding mine across the table. His touch felt calculated. Like everything else about him lately. Mr. Hayden, you've taught me so much about the business, Make said, his voice warm with manufactured sincerity. It's an honor to be part of this legacy. Legacy. Not family. Legacy. My cousin Nayeli caught my eye from across the table, her expression unreadable. She slid a napkin toward me with something written on it. You look uncomfortable when you smile. I glanced at the message, then at her. She was right. I had been uncomfortable. For months, actually. Every smile felt like a performance, every laugh slightly delayed, every moment of happiness requiring effort I didn't remember needing before. Sage has such good taste in men, my father continued, not looking at me. Finally learned to choose. With her head instead of her heart. The irony wasn't lost on me. I hadn't chosen anything. I'd simply stopped resisting what everyone else wanted for me. There's a difference between choice and surrender, but apparently nobody else could see it. Make squeezed my hand. She makes me want to be worthy of all this, he said, gesturing around the dining room with its expensive art and inherited furniture. All this. Not her. This, later, as we cleared the dishes, Nayeli cornered me in the kitchen. When did you start? Looking like you were apologizing for existing, she asked quietly. I paused, a wine glass halfway to the sink. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. You used to fill rooms, Sage. Now you just occupy them. I set the glass down carefully, watching the light catch the crystal. Sometimes it's easier to be what people expect than to fight for what they can't understand. And what can't they understand? That I'm not an accessory to my father's business empire. That I'm not a prize to be won. That maybe, just maybe, I have thoughts about my own life that don't require their approval. Nayeli dried her hands slowly, considering. So why are you marrying him? I looked out the kitchen window at Make and my father on the patio, deep in conversation about quarterly projections and market expansions. They looked like they belonged together. Natural. Comfortable. Because, I said finally, fighting takes energy I don't have anymore. But even as I said it, I could feel something stirring. A tiny spark of the person I used to be, the one who asked questions and demanded answers and never, ever settled for good enough. The bra was still in my purse. Rose pink and impossible to ignore. Sakari arrived the next Tuesday with a gift box wrapped in cream-colored paper and silver ribbon. Her signature style, elegant, expensive, thoughtful. The same style I'd been perfecting for years before she decided to perfect it too. I saw this and thought of you, she said, settling into my living room like she owned it. Which, considering how much time she spent there, maybe she did. Inside the box was a jewelry case with hand-embroidered initials. Beautiful. Intricate. Familiar, identical to the one I'd given her for Christmas. It's gorgeous, I said, running my fingers over the Same stitching pattern, the same silk lining, the same tiny pearls adorning the corners. Very thoughtful. You inspire me so much, Sage. I wanted to give you something that shows how much your friendship means. Inspire. That was an interesting word choice. I looked at Sakari, really looked at her. When had she started wearing her hair like mine? When had she bought those earrings that looked remarkably similar to my favorites? When had she started using the same perfume? I'm glad we have each other, she continued, arranging herself on my couch with practiced grace. Especially with everything changing so fast. The wedding, your father bringing Make into the business, wait. I set the jewelry case down. What do you mean, bringing Make into the business? Sakari's eyes widened slightly, like she'd said something she shouldn't have. Oh, I thought you knew. Make mentioned that your father offered him a position. Something about expanding the European accounts. I didn't know. Of course I didn't know. My father discussed business with everyone except me, his own daughter, the one who actually had a degree in international commerce. He asked me so many questions about your family, Sakari continued, seemingly oblivious to my growing tension. About your father's connections, the company structure, your inheritance plans. I figured you two talked about everything. My inheritance plans. Not our future together. My inheritance plans. What kind of questions? I asked carefully. Oh, you. No. How close you are with your father, whether you're involved in major decisions, who else might have claims to the family business. I thought it was sweet, wanting to understand your world better. Sweet. That was one word for it. Later that evening, I found Nayeli on my balcony, smoking one of her rare cigarettes and staring out at the city lights. She wants to be you, Nayeli said without turning around. But she wants to be the version of you that comes without the complications. What complications? Your actual personality. Your opinions. Your inconvenient habit of thinking for yourself. I joined her at the railing, the cool air sharp against my skin. Am I being paranoid? About what? Everything. The questions, the gifts, the way everyone seems to know more about my life than I do. Nayeli took a long drag and exhaled slowly. Paranoia is when you think people are plotting against you without evidence. What do you call it when you have evidence, but everyone tells you you're being emotional? I don't know. Survival instinct. She stubbed out her cigarette and looked at me directly. The question isn't whether something's wrong, Sage. The question is what you're going to do about it. I thought about the rose pink bra, still hidden in my purse like a secret I wasn't ready to tell. I thought about Make's questions and Sakari's imitations, and my father's casual dismissal of my existence. I'm going to watch, I said finally. I'm going to pay attention. And I'm going to remember everything. Good, Nayeli said. Because they're counting on you to forget. Asterisk, the quarterly board meeting was supposed to be family only. That's what the email said, anyway. Immediate family and essential personnel. I walked into the conference room to find my father, my uncle Thomas, and Make discussing market projections like they'd held these meetings together for years. Sage. My father looked up with surprise that felt slightly performative. What are you doing here? The meeting invitation said immediate family. I replied, taking a seat at the table I'd grown up believing would someday be partially mine. Oh, sweetheart, this is all very technical stuff. Numbers and projections and legal frameworks. You'd find it boring. Try me. An uncomfortable silence settled over the room. Make shifted in his chair, suddenly fascinated by his notepad. My Uncle Thomas cleared his throat and shuffled papers unnecessarily. Sage, my father said, his voice taking on that patient tone he used when he thought I was being difficult, let the men handle this, sweetheart. We're talking legacy, not emotions. The words hit like a physical blow. Legacy, not emotions. As if everything I'd ever contributed, every idea I'd ever shared, every late night I'd spent learning this business could be reduced to emotional interference. I have a master's degree in international business, Dad. And it's a very pretty diploma. But this is about real-world experience, not classroom theory. Make finally looked up. Maybe I should go. This seems like a family conversation. Nonsense, my father said quickly. You're practically family already. Besides, you bring a fresh perspective that we need. Fresh perspective. From someone who'd been around for 8 months versus my 28 years of being an actual family member. What kind of perspective? I asked, Meg straightened, clearly prepared for this question. Well, your father and I have been discussing ways to modernize the European accounts. My background in international relations could help bridge some gaps. What gaps? Another glance between them. Cultural gaps, Meg said smoothly. Language barriers. Relationship building strategies. I speak 4 languages fluently and I've been to Europe 17 times. But you've never worked in a professional capacity there, my father interjected. Meg has contacts from his previous position. Established relationships. It's about networking, not tourism. Tourism. He'd reduced my education, my experience. My entire relationship with our European partners to tourism. I looked around the table at these 3 men discussing my family's business like I was an inconvenience to be managed rather than a stakeholder to be consulted. I see, I said quietly. And when were you planning to inform me about these new arrangements? When we had something concrete to present, my father said. No point worrying you with preliminary discussions. Worrying me. Like I was a child who needed protection from complex adult concepts, I stood up slowly, gathering my bag and jacket. I wouldn't want to interfere with your preliminary discussions. Sage, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, Dad. I'm being absent. Since that seems to be what everyone prefers. I walked toward the door, then paused. Just out of curiosity, what exactly did you tell them about me, Meg? He looked genuinely confused. I'm sorry. Your contacts. Your established relationships. When you were building these bridges and modernizing these accounts, how did you describe your connection to our family? The silence stretched too long. As your fiancé, of course, he said finally. Not as the daughter of the company owner? Not as someone with actual authority or decision-making power. Well, I mean, we discussed various aspects of the family structure. I'll take that as a no. I left them sitting there, probably relieved to continue their meeting without my inconvenient questions and dramatic tendencies. In the elevator, I called Nayeli. They're planning my future without me, I said when she answered. I know. How? Do you know? Because they always have been. You're just finally paying attention. The elevator doors opened to the parking garage, and I saw Meg's car in its usual spot. The same car where I'd found the rose-pink evidence of everything I'd been trying not to see. Nayeli. Yeah, I think I'm ready to stop being dramatic and start being strategic. About fucking time. I suggested that Sakari coordinate the engagement party. You have such elegant taste, I told her over coffee at our usual spot. And honestly, I'm so overwhelmed with work right now. It would mean everything to have someone I trust handling the details. Her face lit up like I'd just handed her the keys to a kingdom she'd been admiring from outside. Really? You'd trust me with something that important? Of course. You know my style better than anyone. Better than anyone. Including me, apparently. I have so many ideas, she gushed, already pulling out her phone to take notes. I was thinking we could do something really sophisticated. Garden party vibes, but elevated. White and gold color scheme, maybe some blush accents, blush. Like rose pink, but more refined. That sounds perfect, I said. I'll give you the vendor contacts and the budget parameters. Just make it memorable. It'll be the event of the season, she promised. 2 days later, my father called. I hear Sakari's planning the engagement party, he said, that note of approval already warming his voice. She volunteered. I thought it was sweet. Very sweet. And practical. She has excellent taste, unlike some of your previous, creative choices. My previous creative choices. Like the charity auction I'd organized that raised $200,000, or the client appreciation dinner that secured 3 new major accounts. Creative choices. She's already submitted some preliminary ideas, he continued. Very impressed with her professionalism. Much more practical than your usual approach. Glad you approve. I do. It's nice to see you delegating to people who understand these things. Shows maturity. Maturity. Because wanting to plan my own engagement party was childish, but handing it over to someone else was growth. That evening, Nayeli found me in my kitchen, mechanically chopping vegetables for a dinner I didn't want to eat. You're giving them rope, she observed, settling onto a bar stool. What? Old saying. Give someone enough rope and they'll hang themselves. I paused mid-chop. Maybe. I just want a nice party without the stress of planning it myself. Bullshit. Excuse me. You love planning events. You're brilliant at it. You planned your cousin's wedding, your father's birthday celebration, that corporate retreat that everyone still talks about. Since when do you delegate something you are passionate about? I set down the knife and looked at her. Really looked at her. Since I realized that being passionate about things just gives people more reasons to dismiss me. Or, Nayeli said carefully, since you decided to let them show you exactly who they are without your interference. I didn't answer immediately. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across my kitchen. Everything looked different in this light, familiar objects suddenly foreign, comfortable spaces somehow charged with new possibility. They think I'm stepping back because I'm overwhelmed, I said finally. And are you? No. I'm stepping back. Because I want to see what they do when they think I'm not watching. Nayeli smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in weeks. There's the sage I remember. She's been here all along. She was just quiet. And now. I picked up the knife again, my movements precise and deliberate. Now she's paying attention. And taking notes. Good. Because something tells me this party is going to be very educational. I thought about Sakari's excitement, my father's approval. Makes relief at having someone else handle the emotional details of our engagement celebration. They had no idea what they were about to teach me. Nayeli brought the camera on a Thursday. Small, discreet, designed to look like a phone charger when plugged into the wall. Are you sure about this? She asked, turning the device over in her hands. We were sitting in Make's apartment while he was at work. I had a key, of course. Trusted. Fiancé privileges. I'm sure I want to know the truth, I said. Whether I'm being paranoid or whether my instincts are trying to save me from something I can't see clearly yet. And if you don't like what you find, then at least I'll know what I'm dealing with. The camera went in the living room, angled to catch the couch and kitchen area. The kind of places where people get comfortable, where they stop performing. We finished the installation in 15 minutes. On our way out, Nayeli paused at Make's desk. He's got wedding planning stuff out. She noted, shuffling through some papers. Makes sense. The engagement party's next week. Sage. Her voice was tight. Look at this. She handed me a legal pad covered in Make's handwriting. Lists, actually. Very organized, very thorough lists, European contacts, access level H, company. Structure, key personnel inheritance timeline, probabilities S, dependencies, emotional/financial ES dependencies, I read aloud. That's me. He's analyzing my dependencies. Like a business acquisition, Nayeli said quietly. I flipped the page. More notes, these ones about Sakari S. Network value, social/professional loyalty assessment, malleable information access, family intel he's been studying us, I said, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. Both of us. Like we are assets to be managed. Or obstacles to be handled. I photographed the pages with my phone, my hand steadier than I expected. Amazing how calm you can feel when the worst thing you've imagined turns out to be documented. Reality, the footage came 3 days later. Nayeli and I watched it on my laptop, the timestamp showing 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Just after lunch, when normal people would be getting back to work, but Sakari wasn't at work. She was on Make's couch, and they weren't discussing party planning. Your father already treats me like a son, Make was saying, his arm around her shoulders. She just needs to accept that the business side of things isn't really her strength. She thinks she's so smart, Sakari replied, curling against him with comfortable familiarity. But she's never had to work for anything. Everything just gets handed to her. There, on the couch beside them, was a flash of rose-pink fabric. The same bra I'd found in his car, now carelessly draped over the arm of the sofa like a trophy of their conquest. Not anymore. Once we're married, I'll have actual influence. Legal standing. She can focus on, I don't know, charity work or whatever makes her feel important. And me. You'll be the close family friend who helped us see how perfect we are together. The one who really understands what I need in a partner. Which is someone who doesn't question every decision. Someone who appreciates ambition instead of finding it threatening. They kissed then, and it wasn't the desperate passion of secret lovers. It was comfortable. Practiced. Like they'd been doing this for much longer than I'd suspected. I should feel hurt, I said to Nayeli as we watched them discuss their future, a future that apparently involved managing me like a particularly difficult asset. But you don't. No. I feel informed. We watched more. Sakari talking about how she'd always been the better friend, just in the shadow. Make discussing timeline strategies for transitioning control of family decisions. Both of them laughing. About my naive little romantic expectations. They don't love each other, Nayeli observed. No. They just want the same things and figure they can get them faster as a team. What things? I closed the laptop. My life. Just, without me in it. So what now? I thought about the engagement party, less than a week away. All those people coming to celebrate my happiness with a man who saw me as a business obstacle and a woman who saw me as a placeholder for the life she actually wanted. Now we let them have their party, I said. I think it's time they got exactly what they've been planning for. Which is a celebration without me. Nayeli grinned. I like this plan already. Oh, you're going to love the details. The engagement party was perfect. Of course it was. Sakari had excellent taste, especially when she was copying mine, white roses and gold accents everywhere. String quartet playing softly in the corner. Champagne flowing, laughter echoing. Through the garden, everyone dressed in their finest clothes to celebrate the happy couple who weren't there. Well, half of the happy couple wasn't there. I was supposed to arrive at 7. The party started at 6:30, giving everyone time to settle in, grab drinks, find their comfortable spots in the carefully arranged seating areas. At AT 7:15, Meg started looking nervous. At AT 7:30, people began whispering. At AT 8 o'clock, my father called my phone. It went straight to voicemail. I wasn't ignoring them, exactly. I was just elsewhere. Specifically, I was in the conference room of my lawyer's office, signing papers that would change everything. Papers I'd been preparing for weeks, ever since I'd started paying attention instead of just participating. The party continued without me. Because that's what parties do. They adapt, they flow around obstacles, they find ways to keep the energy alive even when the guest of honor doesn't show. At 8:30, the hired hostess, a professional I'd booked months ago, stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue with tonight's celebration, we have a special presentation from Sage. She wanted to share something personal with all of you. The screen descended from its hidden compartment in the pergola. Very high-tech. Very elegant. I'd had it installed specifically for this moment. The video began with soft music and beautiful photos. Me and Make on various dates, looking happy and in love. Sakari in the background of many shots, always smiling, always supportive, always there. Love, my recorded voice began, is supposed to be about truth. About seeing someone clearly and choosing them anyway. More photos. Family dinners, business events, casual moments that looked spontaneous but had actually been carefully curated over months of relationship building. But sometimes, my voice continued, what we think is love is actually something else entirely. The music shifted. The photos changed, screenshots of text messages between Make and Sakari, discussing the Sage situation and timeline management. Audio clips of their conversations about my emotional limitations and inheritance complications. Video footage of them on his couch, planning their future management of my life, and there, in one clear shot, was the rose-pink bra draped casually. Over the sofa arm, the same piece of lingerie that had started my journey toward truth. The garden went silent except for the string quartet, who kept playing because nobody had told them to stop. I found these communications 3 weeks ago. My voice explained over images of Make's handwritten notes about my dependencies, and Sakari's loyalty assessment. I've spent that time trying to understand what I was looking at. More footage. More evidence. More truth than anyone had expected to encounter at a celebration. What I finally understood, my voice said as the presentation reached its crescendo, is that this party isn't about love. It's about transition. You're here to witness the end of one version of my life and the beginning of another. The screen held for a moment on a final image, the rose-pink bra, photographed exactly as I'd found it under Make's car seat, with a simple caption, evidence of everything I chose to stop ignoring. Then the screen faded to black and displayed my final message, you taught me how to present myself like a product. I learned. And now I've withdrawn myself from the market. A pause, then, check under your centerpieces. Every table had been set with beautiful floral arrangements. Hidden beneath each one was a small envelope containing a QR code and a brief note for the complete picture. The QR code led to a private website with additional documentation. Everything I'd discovered, organized, and presented with the same attention to detail that had gone into planning this party, financial records showing Make's debts and his sudden interest in my family's business. Social media analysis of Sakari's gradual adoption of my style, preferences, and social circle. Legal consultation notes about inheritance law and the rights of spouses versus children in family businesses, and at the bottom of the website, 1. Final message, thank you all for coming to celebrate my engagement. As of this afternoon, that engagement no longer exists. I've taken back legal and financial control of everything that was being planned without my knowledge or consent. Enjoy the party. The bar is paid for, the music is beautiful, and the garden looks spectacular. Sakari did an excellent job with the details. I hope you understand why I won't be joining you. I watched the party from the lawyer's office security cameras. They had a beautiful view of the garden from the 23rd floor. People clustered around phones, reading and rereading the evidence. Make trying to explain, his voice carrying across the garden in increasingly desperate tones. Sakari crying, but whether from shame or frustration, I couldn't tell from this distance. My father standing alone by the champagne table, staring at his phone like it contained a message in a language he couldn't understand. Second thoughts? My lawyer asked, offering me a glass of wine. About which part? Any of it. The engagement, the evidence, the public nature of the revelations. I considered this, watching the guests below navigate this unexpected truth with varying degrees of grace and confusion. No, I said finally. I'm tired of protecting people from the consequences of their own choices. And now. I closed the laptop. And gathered my purse. The papers were signed, the transfers were complete, the truth was public. Everything that had been decided about my life without my input had been undecided with very specific input. Now I go home and make dinner for 1. And probably sleep better than I have in months. No regrets? I looked out the window one last time at the party below, my engagement party, celebrating the end of my engagement, full of people who would have very interesting conversations on their drive home. I regret that it took me this long to listen to my own instincts. Everything else? Everything else was exactly what it needed to be. 3 months later, I was having coffee with Nayeli when she brought up the article. Did you see what they're saying about you online? I don't read the comments anymore. These aren't comments. Someone wrote a whole piece about the SAGE method for handling relationship betrayal. I looked up from my newspaper. Yes, I still read actual newspapers, another habit that apparently made me old-fashioned according to people who documented their entire lives on social media. The SAGE method. Strategic documentation, professional presentation, clean separation. No drama, no begging, no second chances. Just precision. That makes it sound calculated. Wasn't it? I considered this. It was thorough. There's a difference. Is there? Calculation implies I was trying to hurt them. I wasn't. I was trying to free myself. And did you? Free yourself, I mean? I looked around the coffee shop, a new place, in a new neighborhood, near my new apartment. Smaller than the old one, but entirely mine. No shared decisions, no compromised aesthetics, no conversations about what we wanted when we actually meant everyone except me. Mate called last week, I said. What did he want? To explain. To apologize. To ask for another chance to make things right. And I didn't answer. I haven't blocked his number, but I don't answer. Why not block it? Because silence is a choice. Blocking feels reactive. Not answering feels intentional. Nayeli stirred her latte thoughtfully. What about Sakari? What about her? Do you miss her? This was the question I'd been avoiding. Even in my own thoughts. Did I miss my best friend? Did I miss the person I'd trusted with my secrets, my insecurities, my plans for the future? I miss the person I thought she was, I said finally. But that person never existed. I miss the friendship I thought we had, but it was always one-sided. I was being a friend to someone who was studying me. That's not the same thing as missing her. No. It's not. And your father? The complicated one. He sends flowers on the 15th of every month. No note, no calls. Just flowers. The 15th? The day I signed the papers transferring my trust fund out of his oversight and into my own control. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table between us. As if summoned by our conversation, it began to ring. My father's name appeared on the screen. Without hesitation, I reached for my coffee cup and gently lowered the phone into the warm liquid. The screen flickered once, then went dark. That seemed symbolic, Nayeli observed. It felt necessary. Expensive way to make a point. Cheaper than the alternative. We watched the phone settle at the bottom of the cup, the dark coffee making everything inside look distorted and distant. No regrets? She asked. About which part? Any of it. The phone, the flowers, the silence. I looked out the window at people rushing past with their urgent destinations and important calls. Everyone's so busy managing their connections, maintaining their networks, staying available for whatever others might need from them. I spent 28 years being accessible to people who never really saw me, I said. Now I'm learning what it feels like to be unreachable. And how does it feel? Quiet. In the best possible way. You always said I was different, I told them. You were right. I learned how to love myself without needing your permission. I learned how to find my own truth instead of accepting your version of it. I learned that quiet doesn't mean weak. My mother whispered, "You were always so cold." I paused at the doorway, hand on the frame where I'd stood as a child, listening to fights about whether I belonged. "No," I said quietly. "I was always unwanted. Until I realized that was your problem, not mine." As I walked to my car, I noticed Mrs. Henderson in her front yard, tending to her roses even in the evening light. She looked up when she heard my footsteps. "Victoria," she called softly. "I'm glad to see you, dear. I kept wondering where you were at the service." I stopped, surprised by the warmth in her voice. "You noticed?" "Of course I noticed. You were his daughter. You should have been there." She pruned another rose, her movements gentle and sure. "He used to watch for your car when you visited. Did you know that? He'd stand at the window until you drove away." Something tight in my chest loosened just a little more. "I didn't know. He wasn't good at showing love," she said. "But that doesn't mean it wasn't there." I thanked her and drove home through the quiet streets of a town that had never quite felt like mine. But the silence in my car was different. Now. Lighter. It wasn't the absence of something anymore, it was the presence of peace I'd finally earned. I still have the watch. It still keeps perfect time. And I've learned that sometimes the last word is the one you don't have to say out loud. Sometimes it's just the sound of your own footsteps walking away from people who never deserved your silence in the first place. They thought quiet meant weak. They learned the difference. If this reminded you of someone, maybe yourself, remember, you don't need their permission to know your own worth. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop asking for what they'll never give.